Welcome to The Real Game, a podcast by coaches for coaches. I am your host, Matt Philbrick. Welcome back to this episode of The Real Game. As always, I'm your host, Matt Philbrick, coming today to you from sunny and very beautiful, actually, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I happen to be on vacation this week, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to have today's guest on with me. I've been tuning into a Nations of Coaches podcast that I've really been gleaning a lot from. And my guest was on there as one of the guest speakers, I think, on the first episode, talking about assistant coaches, and that was the topic. And so today I'm joined by Coach LaVall Jordan. Coach Jordan is currently at DePaul University in Chicago. You are the assistant coach there and the general manager of the men's basketball team. So, Coach, just introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about your coaching journey and kind of how you've gotten to where you've gotten today.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me. First of all, I've been tuning into those Nations of Coaches webinars and had my notebook out each and every time. So great to meet you. I know we've got a common friend in Pete Weary who's
Absolutely
in that space, leading others. But my coaching journey, I started off, I played at Butler 4 years. I'm from Michigan originally, a small town called Albion, Michigan, one high school, one middle school. So graduating class of 107. So somehow Butler, God kind of orchestrated it, and Butler found me. And back before I didn't know where Butler was, and neither did a lot of people, went there and had a decent amount of success, in the 4 years, 3 tournaments in 4 years, and advanced and won a game the senior year, which was kind of the beginning of like a landslide, I guess, back then. And so I played for Barry Collier, who I came back to work for as the AD when I was the head coach there. So 4 years there, and then went on to play a couple years, and had an opportunity to get into coaching. Did not know that was going to be the path. I always say coaching is a calling, but came back, started there as the ops, and was there a few years. We went to a Sweet 16 with a coach named Todd Licklider, who was tremendous. Our staff was pretty good. Brad Stevens, myself, Matthew Graves, who's the head coach at Indiana State now, and obviously Brad's the phenom and general manager of Boston Celtics. I went with Coach Licklider to Iowa. I was there 3 years, and then from there went to Michigan with Coach John Beilein for 6, and had a decent amount of success under coach and learned a ton before I got my first head coaching opportunity at Wisconsin Milwaukee. And so I was there for a year and then on to Butler. So been blessed to be around just tremendous human beings, first of all, like just good guys that do things the right way and that are really good basketball coaches, and kind of picked and pulled something from each one of them to shape how I think about, coaching this game and mentoring young people.
Sure. I lived in Indianapolis for 5 years, from 2005 to 2010, and coached at a small Christian school there, and had the privilege of going to a couple Butler games. In 2009, I remember somebody gave me a ticket. I sat right behind the bench, and it was an exciting time. I love basketball. I love that level of basketball. And were you there in 2009 or?
At that time, I would have been at Iowa. I was there 04 to 07. At Iowa 2007 to 2010, and then Michigan 2010 to 2016.
Excellent.
So some increments, but kind of always been in the Midwest Big Ten footprint. My whole career, whole life raising my family. I've got 3 daughters.
Excellent.
One of them is a sophomore at the University of Michigan, Ava. She's a gymnast, and then I've got 2 that are at Heritage Christian, small Christian school in Indianapolis.
I'm very, very familiar with it. Yep.
Yeah, and so my wife Destiny went to North Central High School there in India, so we met. We're 20 years in as a married couple. So
glad to hear you're a family man.
The best recruit I ever landed, right there.
Yeah, there you go. So, Coach, today I wanted to talk to you about the topic. I know I sent you some questions to look over, and I was talking to some friends of mine, some fellow coaches, about a team I had a couple years ago that had all the talent in the world, but they seemed to just lack that fire in their belly to just compete. And we ended up doing a lot of winning with that team. There were 8 seniors, which is a lot for a high school team on there that graduated all at once. But motivating them was a task that I was never really faced with at that level before. And
Yeah.
you've been coaching for a long time, and I don't know what the secret is to motivating athletes. I've been coaching at high school for 30 years, so I've got a few, tools in my tool belt. But I'd love to hear, kind of what you have to say about that. Um, I think that some athletes are just naturally more motivated than others, and maybe a few just need a little bit, push along the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what
Certainly.
I want to talk to you about, and so I'll just get right into it. So, what's your philosophy on motivation, and how do you approach getting the best out of your players? Kind of that's
Yeah,
just like the umbrella.
it's such a good question because if anybody has it like figured out, then we all need to sit and
Yeah.
just listen to that seminar, right?
Yep.
Because every human being, every person is different. So I don't think, that we're all motivated by the same thing.
Sure.
I think people are motivated by different things. So if you got a group like you're talking about, like all 8 of those seniors want something different, right? They
Hmm.
all value. So I think getting to the core of a person is a big piece of it, to just try to land. And it's hard with younger people because they're learning, right? They're becoming.
Sure.
You're in that adolescent phase, in that stage of life. You're trying to help them discover. I think discovery is a big piece of it.
Hmm.
Discover their values, what they truly value. Well, obviously, I'm 45 years old. I have a lot more clarity on that now than I did when I was 18, 19,
Sure.
20.
Yep.
But if you're leading them into, what they truly value, and if you can help them discover the things that they want to stand on for life, not just for being a good athlete, being good at the sport, then, and what they want to get out of the experience. And I
Hmm.
think those conversations are real, not just in my experience, because everyone will say they want to win in the beginning.
Yep.
And then now you're, like right now we're on practice number 22, and we still haven't played. Had a scrimmage, private scrimmage, and we're heading into the regular season. And
Yep.
that fire, or to bring every single day, it just has to be a part of who you are more
Sure.
than some coach, getting you started up every single day.
Yeah.
But I think for
Yeah.
the coach or for the leader is really identifying and connecting with the player or the person that you're leading in terms of what they value, and you revealing, kind of showing them your character, that you have their best interest in mind.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people are just skeptical if they can really trust you to
Yep.
follow you and to believe what you're saying. I think there's a connection point there, and if you have that, the character that they trust, and they think you know what you're talking about, you can guide them, and you know what they value, and you're trying to help them be a better person. But I've always felt like the better person, the player emerges. So if you keep
Hmm.
developing the person, you'll get, motivated players to come back for more if they
Yeah.
really truly feel like you care about them.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I've always been a huge advocate for relationships, building relationships and building trust. So that's what I'm hearing from you. Finding out, getting to know your players, finding out what they value, building those relationships and investing in them, right? So when the time comes, they're willing to give back to you. So
Yeah,
that's great,
certainly.
great point.
Certainly.
So you have potentially an athlete on your team, whether it's a guy or a girl, and they make a play, all right, and maybe it's a bad play. Maybe they turn the ball over once or twice, and then their heads down and they're jogging up the court, and you know that they're in their own headspace at that point. How do you get that player out of that to be like, dude, just focus on the next play. Let's go.
Yeah, I think we preach that all the time. I would say, each stop that I've been at, the experience has been that you try to develop that as a part of your culture for all of your players, athletes, people to respond and solve problems.
Mhm.
I think that starts early though in their life, so
Yeah.
you're recruiting. Obviously, we get to recruit. You're a high school coach, you don't get to recruit as much
Yeah.
as some places.
Yeah.
uh, and so you're trying to I think evaluate on intel the pedigree of the person to see if they have. I think curiosity is important, and
Hmm.
I challenge my daughters with this all the time. Like they always don't know. It's like, hey, I don't
Sure.
know. Don't you want to know how things work, how things come? It's like, nah,
Yeah.
they just want to use the things and consume it. But
Sure.
it's if you have curious people, and then if you've created kind of a problem solving, growth mindset culture, I think those are, it's a mistake. Basketball is a mistake game.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
definitely.
I
Yeah.
think the freedom to know it's okay to make one for a lot of players in our sport is
Sure.
important. And that the coach now they can be egregious, and I think the intentions, as long as the intentions are good,
Yeah.
guys know they're going to make mistakes. It's just life, right? Things
Yeah.
aren't always
Yeah.
going to go your way, and so you're trying to train your behavior. And I think we talk a lot about that at each place I've been. Coach Holtman here, whether it was with Coach Beeline or Coach Licklider.
Hmm.
Truly and truly, it's your behavior that gets your results. So I've had a couple of conversations with guys here since I've been here to talk about soft skills.
Yeah.
It's like, well, your hard skills are you can handle, pass, shoot, move your feet. Like you have physical tools and gifts and things that you can do. But if your soft skills, right, your mental toughness, your ability to control your emotions in the moment, accept criticism or coaching and feedback without,
Sure.
getting defensive, those things prevent you from your soft skills, prevent your hard skills from showing up and emerging. So we
Yeah.
can't the player you really are won't show up until you get over it, right?
Right.
Which I guess
Right.
Coach Popovich would say, get over yourself, right?
Yep. Yep.
But getting them to understand, I think lack of awareness happens too often in our game. Like it's okay, you can't become who you're meant to become until somebody makes you aware who you are.
Hmm.
So if you're a player that struggles with that, it's like somebody's got to tell you you have to be able to kind of handle it, and
Yeah.
then talk about how we move forward to be who you're made to be, who you can become.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great segue into our next question, actually, finding that balance between positive reinforcement and constructive criticism. And like you said earlier, everybody responds differently in different ways.
Yeah.
You can be maybe more critical with certain people or less critical with others. But how do you, as a coach, how do you find that balance to motivate a kid without, maybe breaking them? And when's a good
Yeah.
time to positively reinforce as well?
Yeah, I think, many coaches would say, praise in public and criticize in private.
Mm. Yep.
You have to really know the person that
Yep.
like if they're a person you can call out in front of the group and they can handle that.
Sure.
It's not that they don't, it's just each person's different. Some guys, some players, some athletes, it just rolls off their shoulder. They're going to go on and make the next play with
Right.
great courage. And some, a private conversation is better. And you learn that as you learn, who you're working with, who's better in a one-on-one setting versus the group setting. But then if you have non-negotiables in your program,
Hmm.
everybody kind of gets called on those, and they all have to meet that standard.
Sure.
So I think that there's always kind of that push and pull of what I try to do is let these guys know there's greatness in you, because that's what God only made things to be great. If you
Hmm.
just go look outside and see the beauty of just being out in the sky and trees and
Sure.
nature.
Yep.
And so if that's the case, if we can agree on that, I think those acknowledgments and agreements are important. So if
Hmm.
we can agree on that, then it's about how to get there
Right.
and get that out of you each and every day. And so the mistakes and the coaching or pointing it out and growing through those is a part of it.
Yeah.
I think getting them to understand perfection and progress are different. It's not a game of perfect. And I think a lot of times guys get anxious, players get anxious, athletes
Yep.
get anxious because they want to play perfect. It's like,
Sure.
well, that's probably Steph Curry is the best shooter in basketball, and he misses 60%, 60% of the
Hmm. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so I think just to be able to accept, hey, that's okay.
Hmm.
You're striving for, net going 10 out of 10, right? The facts is, maybe that won't happen, but that still has
Sure.
to be something you're striving for.
Yeah.
But I think that pointing out to players in that positive way of who they can become and letting them know and reinforcing that like that vision is important, them aligning with the vision,
Hmm.
that what you think they become is important. And then they take the feedback, right, to just try to get a little bit closer to becoming, what you guys agreed on as a vision
Yeah.
for them.
That's an excellent point. To go back to something you said a little bit earlier, making sure that kids have the liberty to play through their mistakes. And because, like you said, basketball is a game of mistakes, and every sport is. Like kids are going to make mistakes no matter what they're doing, whether it's just at life in general or in sports. But giving them to always try to tell my players, go out, play with confidence. What does that look
Yeah.
like? What does playing with confidence look like? To me, I
Yeah.
think it's that a kid has the confidence to go out and do their best and play hard and make a mistake and know that I'm not going to cut their head off for it. Right.
Mhm.
So, and as soon as that starts to happen, as soon as I start to come down on them too hard, like you said, in public, that confidence kind of tends to go away. So just giving them the freedom to work through those mistakes and play through those mistakes, to become better players. I think that's an excellent point that you make there.
Certainly. And there's a
Yeah.
fearlessness that you're trying to build in each athlete, right? Just don't be afraid to go for it.
Yeah.
That we're all as humans, as people, sometimes there's this idea we had, maybe it's the business you wanted to start, and
Yep.
you think about it and like you just don't start it. It's like, well, why not? But what holds you back from like taking a shot at it? And I
Yep.
think we could, if we're walking in our true identity and you're trying to get more, people under to do that, and not kind of worry about what other people think, and kind of live in this what you think you have to be for others, but just dive into, really who God made you to be and just go for it with that. And so I think that confidence comes from like fully aware of my strengths and what I do,
Yep.
and that I can bring that to the table and others, maybe that's my value for the team. And now you create, the a fearless mindset for guys to have the courage to just, go for it and
Yeah.
like not in a reckless way, but in a responsible way that for the
Sure.
group that's going to lead to winning. But creating that inside of them is something that it's like a task that I love that
Yep.
challenge to try to get the fearlessness out, get people to walk in their true identity.
Yeah. I love that word you use, fearless. Like that's a great word. And that might just be the word I'm going to use for my theme this year for basketball season. You might have just given me a good idea there. So fearless. That's great. What role does leadership on a team play in developing culture and maintaining player motivation?
From the players themselves.
From a player perspective, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Any coach would probably sit on here, Matt, and tell you the best coach teams are player owned.
Hmm.
So then the question becomes like, how do you create that?
Yeah.
And so I think, in my experience at least, it's, bringing them into it. Sometimes as coaches, it's our way or the highway, and I just think there's a partnership there, and you have to gauge the maturity of the potential leaders in your group, right? You don't want to give the keys to the car to a 4-year-old.
Yep.
And so the ones that are really committed, I think that's a constant evaluation, and that emerges as you like put them in adverse circumstances and kind of see who you're trying to get rid of the blaming, the complaining,
Hmm.
and get towards those that solve problems, those that pull people together, those that kind of naturally have some traits. And then how do you grab that group, if there's a group, or that person, if there's only one, and give them the responsibility and some mentorship. I think we all desire great leaders. I don't
Yep.
know if we do a good job of building great leaders. So a lot of them want to. Maybe some don't want the responsibility, but some do,
Hmm.
but they don't know how.
Sure.
Right? And I think that's our job. Whereas whether it's getting them to learn how to talk to a teammate, how to hold a team, in a positive way, how to hold a teammate accountable when it's, when at the right time with the right words,
Hmm.
how to learn and build relationships with with the rest of their teammates,
Right.
so that they can have tough conversations and all of those things you can help coach and grow and mentor guys or athletes or people in general, if they have a desire, if they have some. I've had a couple players in the past. Aaron Thompson was a freshman point guard for me at Butler, and I grabbed him aside, and you saw him tell one of our star players to he wouldn't pass him the ball because he looked over at me and was wondering what play call we were going to run.
Mhm.
I thought, ooh, that guy, he's going to be one of our leaders because he just told one of our best players to hang on a second. He doesn't know
Yep.
how to lead yet, but we got to
Yep.
grow. We have to grow it. And
Yep.
so being able to kind of sniff out some of those traits
Sure.
and really get a relationship with those guys and give them ownership. I think those we do in practices. We'll give players ownerships of drills to see, just as they learn the terminologies, they can run drills. Give them ownership with the schedule
Hmm.
because it's a demanding schedule at this level with training
Sure.
and class and practice and weights and all the things. So sometimes if we're going to make a tweak at giving them ownership to say, hey, would you rather go here early in the morning or in the middle of the
Yeah.
afternoon? Just small things that create the level of ownership that you desire, and
Yeah.
I think pouring into that and kind of sniffing out those traits early is things that we can do as coaches and leaders.
Sure. Sure. No, all excellent, excellent points. So, Coach, this is my last question, and I think to me, it might be the most important question that I wrote down. As a believer and a child of God myself, how does your walk with God play into your overall motivation as a coach and as a mentor of athletes?
Oh man, that's it's the why. I think God's called me to give him glory in whatever space he puts me in, and
Hmm.
and obviously it's been in the landscape of coaching for so long. I didn't know, like I told you earlier, I didn't know that's what I wanted. I wanted to play.
Yeah.
So I said, God called me to coach because it wasn't something that, even though my dad coached me in high school, he was one of our assistant coaches, and it wasn't like my dream, but it's the assignment, God put in front of me
Yep.
to be able to mentor others. So I think now, years down the line, being able to recognize that and really walk in it and say, man, how can we get the best version of it? We always talk about the best version of ourselves, right? And helping someone be their best version. And I think, there's a mental, right? A mental and a physical and also a spiritual, component to all of us that helps us be that. And
Hmm.
so, I don't force or make anybody. There's always an invitation.
Sure.
You guys are open and searching, which I think a lot of people are, not
Hmm.
just at this age, people in general.
Yep.
So God's just called me to be excited about the opportunity to bring someone to know Jesus a little better, know him a little better,
Yep.
and be able to, lead in that way and help others. So that's been a mission and a purpose, calling, right? I didn't know if I was going to get back into it after being
Yep.
out and being on your side, doing some media for a couple of years, but God called, and I always yield to, that calling and the alignment with the people, the legacy that you can maybe leave, in his glory. And so it's why I do it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Coach, you've given us a lot to chew on and digest here today, and I just so appreciate you coming on and taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to talk and to give us some insight into this topic of motivation. I think it's something that any coach, whether they've been around for 50 years or 5 years, can glean from. So I appreciate you doing that. I wish you the best of luck this year at DePaul. I hope I'll be paying
Thank you.
attention.
Yeah.
Hope you guys have a great season. And 22 practices in, no competition yet, so you got to keep those guys grinding away. I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to get going
Yeah.
at this point. So
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a unique deal. We've got 14 new players, 10
yeah,
transfers, 4 freshmen, and so merging all the new together has been a fun process to get to know
yeah,
these guys.
definitely. Well, have a super day. I'll be praying for you guys as you head into your season. And thanks again for coming on.
Thanks a lot. God
All right,
bless.
thanks. You too.